Ethan Cole stood at the altar of the small cedar-scented chapel, his father's coffin only a few feet away. When his world fractured for the second time that day, he had barely finished the final line of his eulogy, voice trembling, fingers still clutching the paper, when Vanessa, his impeccably dressed wife, clicked forward in her stilettos as if walking onto a runway, not into grief. Without a shred of hesitation, she slipped a stack of papers into his shaking hands. Divorce papers. Gasps rippled through the room. The air thickened. Ethan stared at her, unable to breathe, unable to understand why the woman, who once promised forever, had chosen this moment, his father's funeral, to betray him. But before Vanessa could deliver her rehearsed speech, a calm voice cut through the chaos. His family lawyer, Amelia Grant, rose slowly, eyes sharp. "Before you continue," she said, "there's something everyone here needs to know." And just like that, the room fell silent, because this wasn't just a divorce. It was the beginning of a revelation no one saw coming. Ethan Cole stood at the altar of the small, cedar-scented chapel, his father's coffin just a few feet away. When his world fractured for the second time that day, he had barely finished the final line of his eulogy, voice raw, hands trembling around the paper, when the click of stilettos cut through the hush like gunshots. Vanessa stepped forward, her heels tapping on the wooden floor as if she were walking onto a runway, not into grief. She was flawless. Of course, dark hair twisted into a perfect chignon, black dress tailored to her every angle, makeup untouched by tears. While Ethan's eyes were red and swollen, hers shimmered under the soft light of the stained glass windows. For a heartbeat, he thought she was coming up to comfort him, to take his hand, to stand beside him as they said goodbye to the man who raised him. Instead, she placed a crisp stack of papers into his shaking hands. He stared down. The words didn't make sense at first, swimming through his tear-blurred vision. Petition for dissolution of marriage, his own name, her name, legal terms that didn't belong next to lilies and hymns, and an oak coffin his father had chosen long before the heart attack took him. Divorce papers. The words slammed into him. Air vanished. For a second, Ethan forgot how to breathe. His fingers tightened around the pages until the corners bit into his skin. A murmur rolled through the chapel, disbelieving gasps, whispered curses, the rustle of expensive fabrics. As people shifted in their seats to get a better view of the spectacle, someone dropped a hymn book. It hit the floor with a dull thud that echoed louder than any prayer. Vanessa didn't flinch. She tilted her head just so, the way she did in boardrooms and charity galas. When she wanted the room's attention, to the guests, colleagues, distant relatives, old family friends, she flashed a polite, sad little smile that looked rehearsed in a mirror. To Ethan, she gave nothing. No apology, no shame. Just a calm, almost bored gaze, like this was an inconvenience more than an act of cruelty. "Ethan," she said, her voice soft but sharpened by the chapel's acoustics, "I know this is a difficult day, but some things can't wait any longer." He heard the words, but they slid over him like oil. His brain refused to process them. Behind him, his father's coffin rested on a simple wooden stand. Just hours before, Ethan had laid his hand on that polished oak and promised he would be strong, that he would honor his father's memory, that he would hold the family together. Now, under the same stained glass light, his wife was pulling the floor out from beneath him. He looked up at her, searching for some sign that this was a mistake, a sick joke, anything but real. There was nothing in her face but a professional detachment he had once admired. The woman who used to fall asleep on his chest, who used to laugh at nothing in their tiny kitchen, was gone. In her place stood someone who could hand him a legal execution in front of his dead father. "She can't be serious," someone whispered from the second row. "What is she doing?" Another voice hissed. The injustice of it hit him in jagged waves. His father, Richard Cole, lay motionless behind him. The man who had built everything in this room from the pews to the coffin with his own rough, calloused hands Richard had lived his entire life preaching loyalty and respect. He had died believing his son at least had a partner who would stand beside him when the world turned cruel. If he could see this, Vanessa shifted her stance, the papers still in Ethan's grip. "I didn't want it to be like this," she went on, eyes glistening just enough to look sympathetic. "But we've both known things haven't been working. Pretending any longer it wouldn't be fair to either of us." Not fair. The phrase tasted like poison on Ethan's tongue. Not fair that she chose this day. Not fair that she chose this room. Not fair that she turned his father's farewell into a theater stage for her exit. His throat burned. He wanted to speak, to ask her why, to beg her to wait, to scream at her to get out. But his voice shriveled beneath the weight of every eye fixed on him. If he broke down now, it wouldn't just be as a grieving son. It would be as a man discarded in public, reduced to a spectacle. Across the aisle, he caught the stare of his cousin Lucas, arms crossed, jaw tight, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Pity, disgust, satisfaction? Ethan couldn't tell. The room started to tilt around him, colors bleeding together under the stained glass, deep reds, somber blues, pale gold spilling over faces that looked suddenly hungry for drama. Vanessa turned, addressing the crowd more than her husband now. "I'm not doing this to hurt you," she said, a hint of tremor entering her voice at last. "But I can't keep living in a marriage where I'm invisible, where I come second to a man who's no longer here. Ethan needs help, and he needs to face that." The implication slid into the room like a knife. He was unstable, broken, incapable. She wasn't just leaving him. She was rewriting their story to make herself the victim. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. He wanted to protest, to say she had never been invisible, that he had broken himself in half, trying to be enough for her and his father. But every memory of their arguments, her accusations, the way she'd once spat, "You'll always love him more than me," crowded his throat. What if people believed her? What if she had been preparing this version of events for months? He felt small, exposed, standing there at the front of the chapel. He wasn't a grieving son anymore. He was a defendant, and his wife had just filed the opening statement. That was when Amelia Grant rose. At first, the sound was barely noticeable, the rustle of fabric, the scrape of a wooden pew as she slid out into the aisle. But something about her quiet movement commanded more attention than Vanessa's polished speech. Amelia was in her 40s, tall, her dark suit too simple to be fashionable and too precise not to be deliberate. She held a leather folder at her side, her expression steady, unreadable. "Mrs. Cole," Amelia said, her tone calm but edged with steel. "I'm going to ask you to stop there." The murmurs shifted, focus tilting toward her. Vanessa's jaw tightened for a fraction of a second before she arranged her features back into a mask of wounded dignity. "Amelia," she replied, forcing a brittle smile, "this is between me and my husband." Amelia stepped further into the aisle, the light catching on the silver streaks in her hair. "That's where you're wrong," she said. "You chose to make it everyone's business the moment you served him here in this chapel. At his father's funeral, the air thinned. Even the organist, who had been quietly closing hymnals near the back, froze in place." Ethan looked at Amelia as if really seeing her for the first time today. She'd been in the second row, just behind his father's closest friends, hands folded, eyes lowered. He had forgotten she was even here, drowned in the sound of his own pulse. Now she stood like a line drawn in the sand between him and Vanessa. Amelia's gaze swung to the guests, her voice carrying with an ease born of years in courtrooms. Richard Cole was not just a father, or a craftsman, or a business owner. He was meticulous. He planned for everything, including potential. Shall we say, performances like this one. A shiver crawled up Ethan's spine. He remembered the envelope his father had pressed into his hand at the hospital, the way Richard's eyes had been too intense, his voice too deliberate. "You open this only if you feel like the ground is gone beneath you. You hear me?" Ethan had nodded, half thinking it was the morphine talking. Now, with divorce papers cutting into his palm, the ground was gone. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" Amelia didn't look at her. Instead, she opened the leather folder with slow precision, revealing a neat stack of documents. "I am stating," she said, "that before his death, Richard updated his will and certain legal arrangements. And out of respect for him, I'm going to request that you refrain from framing this moment as a spontaneous act of self-preservation." The phrase hung in the air like smoke. There was a subtle shift in the room. Shoulders straightened, people leaned forward, the energy transforming from horrified sympathy to tense anticipation. It no longer felt like a funeral. It felt like the first scene of a trial. Ethan's pulse kicked harder, updated his will, legal arrangements. What had his father seen? What had he planned for? Questions slammed around his skull, colliding with grief, anger, and the bitter taste of humiliation. All he knew for certain was that his father, even from the grave, was somehow involved in this unbearable moment. Vanessa folded her arms, clutching her designer clutch like a shield. "This is still my marriage," she said tightly. "He has a right to know the truth about us, and he will," Amelia replied, eyes never leaving her. "But so will everyone else. And if we are going to discuss truth about motives, about timing, about intentions, then we will do it with all the facts on the table, including your husband's father's last wishes." A beat of silence, then another. Outside, a crow cawed, its cry muted through the stained glass. Inside, no one moved. Even the dust motes in the shafts of colored light seemed to hang in midair. Ethan felt the weight of every gaze bouncing between him, Vanessa, and Amelia. The woman he had married, the man he had buried, the lawyer who now stood between them with a folder that suddenly felt more dangerous than the papers in his hands. Amelia drew a steady breath. "Before this service continues," she said, her voice lowering but somehow growing more intense, "there is something everyone here needs to know about this family, about this marriage, and about what Richard feared might happen. On this very day." The room held its breath. In that suspended second between his wife's betrayal and his lawyer's revelation, Ethan understood something with painful clarity. This wasn't just a divorce. It was the unmasking of a story that had been unfolding behind his back for far longer than he wanted to admit. And whatever came next would either destroy him completely or finally set him free. If you're watching this right now, take a second to breathe in this moment with Ethan. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now. Would you have held it together in his place? And if you want to see exactly what his father planned, what Vanessa is hiding, and how this twisted web unravels, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is only just beginning. Amelia's words didn't simply silence the chapel, they reshaped the air inside it. It was as though every molecule shifted direction, turning toward her, drawn by a gravity stronger than grief or gossip. Ethan felt it too. Even through the fog of betrayal, humiliation, and mourning, something in the lawyer's tone forced him to stand straighter. Or maybe he was bracing himself, unconsciously preparing for another blow. Vanessa's jaw tightened, but she didn't step back. She stayed exactly where she was, heels planted, spine straight, chin lifted, like she believed she still owned the room. Like she was determined not to lose her center of gravity. Even if the ground trembled beneath her, Ethan stared at her, searching her expression for one human crack, some sign of guilt, regret, shame, anything. Instead, he found only calculation. Vanessa wasn't scared. She was annoyed that Amelia had interrupted her moment, her script, her dramatic unveiling of the divorce that was now slipping from her control. It hit Ethan with sickening clarity. She had planned this. Every second of it. Vanessa had chosen his father's funeral, not out of emotion, not out of desperation, but because it was strategic, because he would be too weak to fight, because the audience was built in, because she wanted him broken, A tremor of anger passed through him, but it was smothered instantly by the heavier weight of grief pressing down on his chest. His father's coffin was still right behind him. Richard Cole, the man who taught him how to ride a bike, how to sand wood until it was smooth as glass, how to keep promises even when they were painful, lay silent, cold, and forever out of reach. And his wife had chosen this day to betray him. Amelia continued forward with slow, deliberate steps. Her heels didn't click like Vanessa's. They thudded softly, grounded in purpose, not performance. When she reached the front, she turned slightly toward Ethan, giving him the quiet dignity of inclusion, as if reminding the room that he wasn't just a man being left, he was a man being defended. "Richard spoke to me frequently in the last months of his life," she said, addressing the audience as though she were speaking to a jury. "He was a meticulous man. He believed that respect extends beyond the grave, and he prepared for circumstances that might compromise the dignity of this family." Vanessa's lips pulled into a tight smirk. "So now you're speaking for the dead." Ethan expected Amelia to snap back, but she didn't. She let the comment hang in the air just long enough to expose its ugliness, before calmly responding. "No," she said, "I am speaking for the living, for his son, for the people he cared about, and for the truth he feared would come out at the worst possible moment." She looked directly at Vanessa, which appears to be today. A ripple of shock rolled through the room. Someone whispered, "I knew something was off." Another murmured Richard's name like a prayer. Even Lucas shifted uncomfortably, his gaze flicking between the three at the front, Ethan, Vanessa, and Amelia, as though calculating which direction the tide was turning. Ethan clutched the divorce papers in his hand. The pages trembled, not from the air, not from anything external, but because his hand trembled. He hated that Vanessa could still make him shake, hated that she had the power to affect him, even now. Not again, not in front of these people. He tried to ground himself, eyes lifting toward the stained glass windows overhead. The afternoon sun poured through them, dropping patches of gold and crimson across the pews. He imagined his father sitting there, arms crossed, brow furrowed, unimpressed by the drama unfolding in a place meant for dignity. Richard would have hated this. Amelia opened her folder, pulling out a thin envelope sealed with a wax mark he recognized. His father's personal seal, the one he never used lightly. It dawned on Ethan that this wasn't just a lawyer intervening. This was Richard speaking from the grave, and whatever he had to say was meant for now. "Before Mr. Cole passed," Amelia said gently, "he expressed concern that Ethan might face manipulation during a time of emotional vulnerability. His words, not mine." Vanessa scoffed. "Emotional vulnerability, please. Ethan has always been quiet," Amelia cut in, her eyes flashing with a warning that shut Vanessa up mid-sentence. "This is not your moment." The authority in her voice pierced the room. Vanessa blinked, taken aback for the first time since she'd stepped onto the aisle. Amelia turned toward Ethan. "Your father asked me to give you something when circumstances demanded it." She extended the envelope slowly. "I believe this qualifies." Ethan stared at it. The memory slammed into him, his father's trembling hand pressing an identical envelope into his palm in the dim hospital room. The beeping machines, the oxygen tube, the smell of antiseptic mixed with the faint scent of cedar clinging to Richard's clothes. "You open this only if you feel like the ground is gone beneath you. You hear me?" Well, the ground wasn't gone. It was dust. His fingers brushed the envelope, but he didn't open it yet. The weight of it alone anchored him. Whatever was in there, Richard believed it mattered, and for the first time since the divorce papers appeared, Ethan felt a fragile thread of strength weave through the fog choking his chest. Vanessa took a step forward. "Ethan, don't let her manipulate you into thinking my timing has anything to do with your father's paranoia." "Enough," Amelia said, louder this time. The chapel fell silent again. Amelia's gaze sharpened. "You brought legal documents into a funeral? You chose the most vulnerable moment a person can experience to serve your own interests. Do not speak to us about manipulation. A few people nodded. One older woman muttered, shameful. Ethan wasn't sure if Vanessa heard it, but her expression hardened visibly. Amelia turned to the audience. Many of you knew Richard. You knew his integrity, his discipline, his love for this community, and you also know he didn't act impulsively. Heads bobbed throughout the room. Richard had been a respected man, direct, honest, at times harsh, but never reckless. He updated his will, Amelia continued, and he left very specific instructions should his son face undue influence regarding his future or his inheritance. Vanessa stiffened. What inheritance? The lawyer ignored her. Richard was concerned that grief could make Ethan susceptible to decisions he wouldn't otherwise make. And he had reason to believe certain people might exploit that. Exploit, Vanessa snapped. You're twisting everything. I'm stating facts, Amelia replied. And the facts are that Richard hired private counsel months before his death to ensure Ethan's financial and emotional security. Vanessa's voice sharpened into something brittle, metallic. So you're claiming he wrote me out of the will? I'm not claiming anything. Amelia's tone remained steady. I'm telling you that Richard Cole protected what he built. And he protected his son. Because he feared this exact scenario, this spectacle you chose to force into a place of mourning. Ethan felt the entire room shifting against Vanessa. Whispered judgments swirled like cold drafts. Even those who had once been charmed by her presence now looked at her differently, as if seeing the cracks in the porcelain mask she wore so flawlessly. For the first time, Vanessa faltered. Her bottom lip trembled before she bit it. Hard. Amelia pressed on. And since you have insisted on making this moment public, what comes next will also be public. Every detail, every motive, every word your husband deserves to know. Ethan swallowed hard. His hands tightened around the envelope, knuckles white. He wasn't ready for what he was about to learn. He knew that, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid of it either. Fear had already torn him apart. What else could it take? Vanessa took in a shaky breath, trying to regain control. Ethan, she said softly, please, don't let her turn you against me. This isn't what it looks like. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. The woman he had fallen in love with had once been warm, charming, electric. He remembered late-night talks on their tiny sofa, her head on his shoulder, her laughter filling the apartment, the way she used to look at him like he was enough. He didn't see any of that now. He saw strategy. He saw panic. He saw someone who had miscalculated her timing and was scrambling to recover her grip on him. I don't know what this is, Ethan whispered, his voice breaking. But this isn't love. Vanessa's eyes glistened as she opened her mouth to respond, but Amelia lifted a hand. Save your explanations, she said coldly. You'll need them for what comes next. The lawyer tapped the folder. Tonight, we continue with the service. Tomorrow, we begin uncovering the truth. Ethan exhaled shakily. Tomorrow, it sounded like a threat. It sounded like a promise. It sounded like the beginning of a war he never asked for, but one he could no longer avoid. And somewhere deep inside him, beneath the grief and betrayal, something steady flickered to life. His father hadn't abandoned him. His father had prepared him. He just needed to open the envelope. For a long moment, Ethan stood motionless at the front of the chapel, the envelope in his hands feeling heavier than the coffin behind him. People began to shift in their seats, murmuring in low, uncertain voices. Some were sympathetic, others curious. A few quietly thrilled at the spectacle unraveling before them. Funerals often exposed the cracks in families, but this was something else entirely. A dissection, a betrayal laid bare on sacred ground. Vanessa stepped backward, reclaiming her spot near the front pew. Though her composure had clearly slipped, her perfect posture was stiff, her arms crossed, her jaw tight as she tried to maintain whatever dignity she had left. From across the room, Ethan watched her chest rise and fall. a little too quickly, as if she were trying to breathe through panic. Good. Some distant, wounded part of him thought, good. Let her feel even 1% of the weight crushing me. But another part of him, the part his father raised, recoiled from that thought. Richard Cole would never have celebrated another person's suffering, even someone who deserved it. He would have said something about character, about keeping your soul clean, even when everything else falls apart. Ethan exhaled shakily. He wasn't sure if he was strong enough to do that now. Amelia closed her folder, her eyes lingering on Ethan with a quiet warning. Almost like she could sense how close he was to collapsing. "We will continue this conversation later," she murmured to him, barely above a whisper. "Not here? Not now?" He nodded, though the words blurred around him. He wanted the service to end, but at the same time, he dreaded leaving this chapel, because outside these walls waited a new reality. He wasn't just a grieving son. He was a man whose entire marriage had detonated in front of witnesses. The pastor cleared his throat, his voice trembling as he tried to salvage the ceremony. "Let us continue honoring Richard's life," he said weakly. "Please bow your heads." Everyone obeyed except Ethan. He couldn't bow, not because he didn't respect the ritual, but because bowing felt like surrender, and he'd already lost too much today. He stared at his father's coffin throughout the rest of the prayer, trying to anchor himself. He pictured Richard sanding wooden beams in the workshop, humming old country songs under his breath. He pictured the nights they stayed up late fixing furniture for neighbors who couldn't afford repairs. He pictured the quiet moments, his father's large, rough hands, guiding his smaller ones on a plane tool, the weight of his father's lessons settling into his bones. "Focus," he told himself. "Remember him, not her," he tried. But every time he looked at the coffin, the image of Vanessa handing him the papers cut through him like a blade. When the service finally ended, people approached Ethan one by one, some offering condolences, others offering pity. A few offering thinly veiled curiosity about the drama. He nodded automatically. His responses short and blurred. He barely heard their words. Every voice felt distant, muffled, like he was hearing them from underwater. He kept catching flashes of Vanessa through the haze, her smile too bright, her tone too brittle, her eyes scanning the room with nervous calculation. She was trying to control the story already, he realized. Trying to twist the narrative before the truth came out. He watched her touch a grieving aunt's arm, whisper something, shake her head as though she were the wounded party. A familiar tightness pulled at Ethan's stomach. Vanessa had always been good at shifting blame. At bending the world into the shape she wanted. His cousin Lucas approached next, hands shoved into his pockets. Lucas had always been charming, quick-witted, good-looking, in a polished way that made people trust him too easily. But today, his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Rough day," Lucas said gently. I'm sorry, man." Ethan looked at him, but something in Lucas's expression was off. Too sympathetic, too rehearsed. The timing of it made Ethan's blood prickle. "Thanks," Ethan managed, voice hoarse. Lucas hesitated. "Listen, if you need help sorting out, all this stuff with the business, with the estate, I'm here, we all are." A strange, bitter thought surfaced. Vanessa isn't the only one performing today. He wanted to ask Lucas why he looked distracted during the confrontation, why he seemed more unsettled than surprised when Amelia mentioned manipulation, but Ethan didn't have the strength to start another fire. "Not yet. Appreciate it," he murmured, though the words felt hollow. Eventually, the chapel emptied. People drifted toward the reception hall, whispering behind their hands. Amelia stayed by Ethan's side, silent but steady, like a pillar holding half his weight. When the last guest finally stepped out, Ethan released a breath he didn't know he was holding. The quiet after the chaos was suffocating. The stained glass windows no longer glowed with color. The sunlight had shifted, leaving the chapel dimmer, colder. "Ethan," Amelia said softly, "you don't have to open the envelope today." He looked down at the seal, his father's initials. The wax cracked slightly under his thumb. "I know," he whispered, "but I think he wanted me to." Amelia hesitated. "This will hurt. Whatever's inside." Richard was worried for a reason. Ethan nodded once, then stepped away from her, moving toward the pew where he used to sit as a kid. It felt right to open it here, where his father had taken him on quiet Sundays, where they used to whisper jokes about the pastor's long sermons and get scolded by his mother. He sat, the envelope trembled in his hands. For a moment, he thought about not opening it, pretending today had never happened, pretending his marriage wasn't a lie, pretending Lucas hadn't looked uneasy, pretending his father wasn't gone, but pretending was how he'd gotten here in the first place. So he broke the seal. Inside was a single piece of paper, his father's handwriting covering the page in neat, sharp strokes. "Ethan, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And something else has gone terribly wrong. There are things I could not tell you without causing more harm. But I need you to trust me one last time. The woman you married, she does not love you the way you believe. She wants what you can give her, not who you are. I prayed I was wrong, but I've seen enough to be certain. Protect yourself. Protect what I built for you, and do not let guilt blind you to the truth. You are stronger than you think. I love you. Son, Dad." Ethan's breath hitched. The words blurred, not from confusion this time, but from the sting of tears he'd held back since the service began. He pressed the letter to his chest and shut his eyes, collapsing inward, as grief swallowed him whole. His father had known, and he hadn't told him. It hurt. It made him feel stupid, misguided, betrayed, but not by Richard, by himself, for ignoring the signs, for believing too much, for wanting Vanessa to be the person he imagined instead of the person she was. He didn't know how long he stayed like that, folded over his father's letter, until he sensed someone standing near the pew. He opened his eyes to see Amelia, her expression softer than he'd ever seen it. "Your father cared for you more than anything," she said. "He didn't want this for you, but he wanted you prepared." Ethan wiped at his face, embarrassed. "He shouldn't have had to protect me from my own wife," Amelia exhaled. "Love blinds the best of us. Not him." "No," she gave a small, sad smile. Richard saw everything with clear eyes, even when it hurt. Ethan looked down at the letter again, his heart breaking in new ways. "Amelia, what exactly did he see?" The question hung in the still chapel air like smoke. Amelia opened her mouth, then stopped, her jaw tightened with a decision. "Tomorrow," she said quietly. "Tomorrow, we talk about what Richard found." Ethan's stomach twisted. "Why not now?" "Because," she answered gently, "you've already survived enough for one day, and what Richard uncovered, it'll take strength to hear it." Ethan didn't argue. Somewhere deep inside, he sensed she was right. The letter alone had taken what little strength he had left. Whatever came next would demand more than grief and anger. It would demand clarity, resolve, maybe even something close to rage. He rose slowly, folding the letter with care and tucking it into the envelope. He wasn't ready to face Vanessa yet. He wasn't ready for Lucas, or the estate, or whatever tangled web his father had hinted at. But tomorrow, he would have to be. As he left the chapel, the last rays of sunlight broke through the stained glass one more time, casting a sharp beam of gold across the coffin, a sign, a blessing, or perhaps a warning. Ethan couldn't tell, but he walked toward it anyway. The rain had started by the time Ethan pushed open the chapel doors. It wasn't a heavy rain, just a thin, cold drizzle carried by the wind, the kind that seeped through clothing and settled into bones. He barely noticed it. His mind was already somewhere else, tangled in memories of his father and questions that cut deeper than any knife. Amelia followed him out, but kept a respectful distance. She understood this was a moment he needed to walk through alone. The parking lot lights cast a dull glow on the wet pavement, reflecting the blurred silhouettes of people drifting toward their cars. Some offered him a sympathetic glance. Most avoided eye contact, confused about whether to approach him or give him space. He chose space. Once he reached his car, Ethan paused with his hand on the door handle. The letter, his father's letter, felt like lead in his pocket. A slow, aching weight that pressed against his ribs every time he breathed. She does not love you the way you believe. The sentence looped in his head. Relentless and merciless. He had spent years convincing himself that Vanessa's cold moments were just stress, that her distance was just work, that her criticism came from wanting the best. He thought marriage was hard for everyone. That doubt didn't mean disaster. Now he wondered how long he had been lying to himself. He slid into the driver's seat and closed the door. For a moment, he sat in the quiet, the rain tapping gently against the windshield. He rested his forehead on the steering wheel, fighting back another wave of exhaustion. The service was over, but the storm had just begun. He turned the key, and the engine hummed to life. As he pulled out of the parking lot, he caught a glimpse of Vanessa standing near the reception hall, sheltered under a black umbrella, held by Adrian Blake, her co-worker, her friend, the man his father had hinted about without ever naming. Their silhouettes blurred together in the rain, too close, too familiar, too comfortable. Ethan's teeth clenched. He forced himself to look away. He didn't trust his thoughts right now, not while grief and anger twisted together inside him like barbed wire. He drove through the dim streets on autopilot, unsure if he wanted to go home or drive until the world blurred into something that hurt less. He ended up at the workshop, his father's workshop, the place Richard Cole had spent most of his life, shaping raw wood into something beautiful. Ethan parked outside the worn brick building and stepped out into the drizzle. The familiar scent hit him immediately: sawdust, old varnish, machine oil, and something warm that lingered even through the locked door. He fumbled with his keys and let himself inside. The workshop was dark, except for a single bulb glowing above Richard's old workbench. Ethan hadn't turned it on. His father always left that one light burning, saying it kept the place alive. Now, it felt like Richard was still here, watching. Ethan ran his fingers over the surface of the workbench, tracing the grooves left by decades of projects. He could almost hear his father's voice. Measure twice, cut once. Or, don't rush your hands. The wood will tell you when it's ready. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry, Dad, he whispered into the empty space. I should have listened. I should have seen her for who she was. Silence answered him. He opened the envelope again and reread the letter. Every word dug deeper. Richard had written it with clarity, certainty. A man who no longer had time to tiptoe around truths. What had he seen? What had he known? And why hadn't he told Ethan outright? Because Ethan wouldn't have believed him. He knew that now. He had been desperate to keep his marriage alive, even when it was clearly dying. He leaned against the workbench, exhaustion pulling at every muscle. Then, without warning, a memory surfaced. It was from a year ago. Vanessa had been pressing him relentlessly to modernize the workshop, sell part of the property, bring in partners, turn Richard's legacy into something marketable. Richard had refused. They'd argued. Vanessa left in a fury. Later that night, Richard had told Ethan something strange. Be careful with people who want what you have, but don't want you. At the time, Ethan thought his father was just being overprotective. Now, he wasn't so sure. A cold shiver slid down his spine. He looked around the workshop, noticing small details he had ignored before. The stack of unopened mail, the ledger left out on the desk, and the blueprint for a new line of furniture he and his father had been planning before the illness took over. The life they had been building together, quiet, steady, honest, stood frozen in time. Dad, what were you protecting me from? He whispered. As if in answer, his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from an unknown number. We need to talk. As soon as possible. Noah Briggs. Ethan's heart kicked. He recognized the name. Noah was his father's private investigator, the one Amelia mentioned, the one Richard had trusted. Before he could reply, another message came. It's about your wife and your cousin. Call me when you're alone. Ethan's breath caught. A chill crawled up his spine. His cousin, Lucas. The same Lucas who had offered help earlier. The same Lucas who looked strangely nervous during the confrontation. The same Lucas who had been overly concerned with the estate long before Richard died. Pieces he hadn't even realized were loose began sliding into place. His hands shook as he dialed the number. Noah answered on the first ring. "Ethan, are you somewhere safe?" The urgency in his voice made Ethan's pulse spike. "I'm at the workshop." "Good," Noah said. "Stay there. I'm on my way." "What is this about?" Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. A pause, the kind that precedes something terrible. "Your father hired me," Noah said slowly, "because he believed someone close to you was trying to undermine the business. At first, he thought it was external competitors. Then he realized it was internal." "Internal," Ethan repeated, though his mind already whispered the answer. "Yes, someone in your family, and someone very close to your wife." Ethan felt the walls closing in. "Tell me who," he demanded. "I will," Noah replied, "but not over the phone. And you need to be prepared. It's not just about the marriage. It's bigger than that." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. "How much bigger?" "Big enough," Noah said slowly, "that your father changed his entire estate plan because of it." The workshop suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too full of ghosts. Noah continued, "I'm 20 minutes out. Stay put. Don't call anyone. Don't answer the door unless it's me." The line clicked off. Ethan stared at the phone. "Don't call anyone. Don't answer the door." The warning sunk into him like a stone. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, knees bent, hands clasped tightly. Rain drummed softly on the metal roof. The single bulb above the workbench flickered. Vanessa's betrayal was just the beginning. Lucas's role was still unknown. His father had seen all of it coming. And whatever truth Noah was bringing, it could tear apart everything Ethan thought he knew about his family. He drew a shaky breath, forcing himself to stay calm. He couldn't fall apart now, not when the truth was finally crawling out of the shadows. Not when the people he trusted most might be the ones who hurt him. As he waited for Noah, Ethan unfolded his father's letter again, studying the final line as though it held a hidden message. "You are stronger than you think." For the first time, Ethan prayed his father was right, because he had a feeling tomorrow would demand strength he didn't know he possessed. The workshop felt different at night. Ethan had spent countless evenings here as a teenager, working beside his father under the warm hum of the overhead lights. The scent of sawdust thick in the air. But tonight, the place was cold, hollow, haunted not by ghosts, but by truths he had ignored for years. Time dragged. The only sound was the steady rain tapping on the roof and the low hum of the single light bulb over the workbench. Ethan sat on the floor, knees bent, arms resting on them, his father's letter still clutched in his hand. Every so often, he unfolded it and read it again, as if the words might change, soften, or offer some explanation that made sense of the unraveling world around him. They didn't. The final line echoed in his mind, "You are stronger than you think." He hoped it was true, because right now he felt like a man frayed at the edges. His phone buzzed again, not a call, just the soft vibration of a message. Ethan hesitated before checking it, half afraid it would be Vanessa, half hoping it would be Noah, saying he had arrived early. It wasn't either. "Lucas, you left the reception without saying anything. Are you okay? Want me to stop by?" Ethan stared at the message. His chest tightened with something complicated: suspicion, hurt, confusion, maybe all of it twisted into a knot. Lucas had always been the fun cousin, the one who made jokes at family dinners and helped him sneak beers at 16. They weren't brothers, but they were close, or had been. Now Ethan didn't know what to think. He typed out a reply, then deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Every word felt like a risk. If his father had hired a private investigator for a reason, if Noah's warnings were real, then letting Lucas know where he was might be dangerous. Dangerous. The word felt surreal. This was family. This was blood. And yet, Richard had been certain enough to change his will. Ethan slipped the phone back into his pocket without responding. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. Time had no shape tonight. At one point, he stood and wandered over to his father's tools, running his hand along the handles worn smooth by use. A half-finished chair sat in the corner, its frame sanded perfectly, its legs unassembled. Richard had been working on it 3 days before he collapsed. He'd planned to put it in the backyard, under the maple tree, a place to sit and drink coffee in the mornings. A sharp ache pressed into Ethan's chest. He picked up the chair seat, feeling the familiar weight of good oak. The memory of his father's voice flickered. You can tell the quality of a man by how he finishes what he starts. Ethan set the wood down gently. The crunch of gravel outside made him freeze. Then came the headlights dim, slow rolling into the parking lot. Ethan's heart jumped. He moved cautiously to the window and peeked through the slatted blinds. A dark sedan. Not familiar, not flashy. Noah, maybe. It looked like the kind of discreet car a private investigator would drive. Relief flooded him, but then the driver's door opened, and someone stepped out. Not Noah, Vanessa. Ethan's breath caught. She stood in the rain, under a black umbrella, her silhouette sharp against the headlights behind her. Her hair was damp at the edges, her dress clinging to her frame. She looked less composed than earlier, more fragile. Almost, but Ethan knew that look too. It was the one she wore when she wanted to get her way by appearing hurt rather than cruel. His stomach twisted. How did she know he was here? She walked toward the workshop door, heels tapping lightly against the wet pavement. Ethan backed away, pulse hammering. His first instinct was to hide. His second was to confront her. His third, the one he hated the most, was to remember the early days of their relationship, when she used to come here, bringing coffee, pretending she loved the smell of wood shavings. He pushed the memory away. Her knock echoed sharply through the building. Ethan. Her voice was soft, pleading. Please open the door. I know you're in there. He stared at the door, chest tight. Ethan. I just want to talk. Please. The part of him that still clung to their history wavered, but then the image of the divorce papers in the chapel flashed through his mind, the cruelty of it, the timing, the smug tilt of her chin. He didn't move. I know today was chaotic, Vanessa said, her voice trembling slightly. But you have to understand, I didn't want it to happen like that. I didn't want to embarrass you. Ethan's fists clenched. She had embarrassed him, publicly. Intentionally. Can we please talk? She whispered. He stayed silent. A long pause. Then, her tone shifted so subtly most people would have missed it. But Ethan didn't miss it. He knew this voice. The one she used when she was running out of options. Ethan, she said quietly, you're making this harder than it needs to be. If you refuse to speak with me, people might start to assume things. The implication was clear. She was threatening him, even now, even here. His father had been right. Before Ethan could respond, another sound broke through the rain. A car. Fast. Turning sharply into the lot, Vanessa stepped back, startled. Ethan hurried to the window just in time to see another vehicle pull up beside hers, a dark SUV this time. The door flew open, and a tall, broad-shouldered man jumped out. Noah Briggs. He slammed the door behind him and strode through the rain. Not bothering with an umbrella, Vanessa stiffened. What are you doing here? Noah didn't answer. He looked like a man who had been holding back a storm of his own and had finally decided to let it loose. He stopped between her and the workshop door. Mrs. Cole, he said coldly, you need to leave. Vanessa straightened. I have every right to speak to my Huss. He doesn't want to talk to you, Noah said, and you don't get to decide the timing anymore. Ethan's breath shook. Noah was supposed to be a quiet man, methodical, controlled, but the edge in his voice now was sharp enough to cut glass. Vanessa narrowed her eyes. You can't keep him from me. I can, Noah growled. And I will. Rain pelted the umbrella she held. Her grip tightened on the handle. Is this what Richard wanted? She snapped. For you to turn his son against his own wife. Noah's jaw flexed. Richard wanted Ethan protected. From you. Lightning flashed across the sky. For a moment, everything froze. Then Vanessa's expression changed. Not to fear, to rage. You're making a mistake, she hissed. Both of you. The venom in her voice made Ethan's skin crawl. But then, just as quickly it vanished. Vanessa drew a deep breath, forcing calm back into her features. She turned toward Ethan's window and raised her voice just enough so she knew he'd hear her. I'll be back when you're thinking clearly, she said. This isn't over. Then she left. The rain swallowed her silhouette, her car, her threat. Noah waited until she was gone before he approached the workshop door. Ethan unlocked it. When Noah stepped inside, he was dripping wet, dark hair plastered to his forehead. He looked like a man who had sprinted through more than rain. You okay? Noah asked. Ethan nodded. Though it wasn't true, Noah exhaled. Good. Because we don't have much time. Time for what? Ethan asked, voice hoarse. Noah locked the door behind them, then turned with eyes full of something Ethan hadn't seen tonight. Pity. Ethan, Noah said quietly. Your father hired me because he discovered something he didn't have the heart to tell you himself, Ethan swallowed. What did he find? Noah stepped closer, lowering his voice. Your wife wasn't just cheating on you. The world tilted. Noah continued. She and Lucas were working together. Ethan's knees weakened. They were planning to take the business, Noah said. The estate, everything. A cold wave ripped through Ethan's chest, and they almost pulled it off. Noah finished. The workshop spun. Ethan grabbed the edge of the workbench to steady himself. His wife, his cousin, together, conspiring, against him, against his father, against the family legacy. Noah's voice dropped to a whisper, heavy with the truth. That's why Richard changed the will. Ethan shut his eyes. The rain hammered harder on the metal roof. For the second time today, his world shattered. For a long moment, Ethan didn't speak. He couldn't. The words Noah had just delivered didn't feel real. Not yet. They hung in the air like dust after a collapse. Suspended and disorienting, as if the world needed a moment to rearrange itself around this new truth. But the world didn't rearrange. It just pressed harder. My cousin, Ethan, finally whispered, barely audible. Lucas and Vanessa. Noah nodded, face grim. Yes. Ethan felt something inside him tear. A slow, painful ripping, less like shock. More like confirmation of an instinct he had forced himself to ignore. For far too long, Noah crossed the workshop, pulling a folder from his soaked jacket and laying it on the workbench. Water dripped from the corners, darkening the wood. But Ethan didn't care. All he saw was the folder. All he feared was what might be inside. Noah, Ethan said, voice raw, just tell me. Tell me exactly what they were doing. Noah hesitated, not from doubt, but from the weight of what he was about to unveil. Richard noticed changes. He began slowly. Small things at first. Missing invoices, unauthorized withdrawals, a few signatures that didn't match yours or his. Ethan's heart thudded, hard, deep. He thought it might be a clerical problem, Noah continued, or a new accountant making mistakes. But then he saw something he couldn't ignore. He opened the folder. The first page was a grainy photograph. Vanessa and Lucas, standing too close, smiling too intimately. In a restaurant Ethan didn't recognize. A chill slid down his spine. He reached out, hand trembling, and picked up the picture. The moment he touched it, something inside him buckled. He felt foolish, exposed, like the last 3 years of his life had been built on sand and the tide had finally come in. He forced his voice steady. How long? Noah took a breath. At least a year, maybe more. A year, a year. Ethan pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes. He remembered a year ago, Vanessa had been colder, picking fights about money, pushing him to get more involved in the business. Lucas had been around more, offering help, dropping hints about how he and Vanessa shared the same vision for modernizing the company. He had brushed it off, all of it, God. He had been blind. "Show me everything," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. Noah nodded and spread several documents and photos across the workbench. Ethan forced himself to look at each one. Financial statements showing small transfers, each insignificant alone but massive when added up. Emails between Lucas and an unknown investor discussing future leadership restructuring. A deleted message thread between Vanessa and Lucas, recovered by Noah's specialist, that made Ethan's stomach twist. "Vanessa, we need him desperate. That's when he'll sign anything. Lucas, he will. He's too emotional, especially with Richard declining. Vanessa, good. Then once the transfer happens, we can push for liquidation. Liquidation. His father's company, his childhood home, everything Richard spent 40 years building." His hands curled into fists. "They wanted to break him," Noah said quietly, reading Ethan's expression. "They wanted him emotional, unstable, vulnerable. So they waited," Ethan whispered. "Waited for my dad to die." Noah nodded once, and then, Ethan said slowly, "Vanessa served me the divorce papers today. At the funeral, to push you over the edge," Noah confirmed. "To make you look unfit to inherit, unfit to make decisions, unfit to run the business." A fresh wave of nausea rolled through Ethan. He gripped the edge of the workbench, knuckles pale. And Lucas, Ethan added hoarsely, was watching, waiting. Noah corrected. He needed to see if her move got the reaction they planned. Ethan's mind spun. Had everything been manipulated? Every argument, every moment she'd withdrawn, every time Lucas had acted sympathetic? Yes. Yes. It made too much sense. "Why?" Ethan whispered. "Why would they do this? Lucas has money. He has his own job, his own life. Why risk everything?" Noah's expression hardened. "He's drowning in debt." Ethan jerked his gaze up. "He hid it well," Noah continued. "Gambling, failed investments, 2 properties in foreclosure. Your father knew. He found out months ago. But instead of humiliating Lucas, he set boundaries." "Boundaries," Ethan echoed. "He cut access." Noah said, "Lucas used to rely on Richard's generosity. When Richard realized Lucas was siphoning money from family accounts, he shut him out." Ethan remembered. Lucas had been colder toward Richard recently. Passive-aggressive comments at family dinners. Complaints about how Richard played favorites with Ethan. "I thought he was just jealous," Ethan said weakly. "He was jealous," Noah said, "but also desperate. And Vanessa gave him an opportunity." Ethan's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "How did she meet him?" "She approached him first," Noah said. "That's what we suspect. She knew she needed someone inside the family. Someone with access. Someone with resentment." Ethan's throat tightened. The betrayal felt suffocating. "My wife," he whispered. "My cousin. Together." He couldn't say more. He didn't need to. The truth already burned. Noah's voice softened. "Your father didn't tell you because he didn't want to break you. Not while he was alive. Not when you were already carrying the weight of his illness." Ethan closed his eyes. That sounded exactly like Richard. Too gentle where he would have been stern with anyone else. Always trying to protect Ethan's heart, even when it hurt his own. "Did he confront Lucas?" Ethan asked. "He did," Noah said. 2 months before his death. What happened? Lucas denied everything. Of course, said your father was misinterpreting things. Said he was under stress from the illness. Ethan swallowed, his throat burning. And Vanessa. Noah shook his head. He never confronted her directly. He didn't have the heart to. He wanted more evidence first. So he hired you. Yes, and he changed the will, Ethan murmured, to protect you. Noah confirmed. Richard knew Vanessa might make a move right after his death. And he was right. Ethan felt dizziness creep in. He dropped into the nearest chair, one of Richard's old workshop stools, its legs uneven but sturdy. He pressed his fingers to his temples. "Why didn't you come to me earlier?" Ethan whispered. Noah sighed. Richard insisted. He wanted more time, and then he got worse. And then he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Ethan already knew how it ended. Silence settled between them like fog, heavy, thick, suffocating. Outside, thunder rumbled distantly. After a long moment, Noah spoke again. "There's more." Ethan lifted his head slowly, eyes hollow. "More." Noah nodded. "Your father suspected Vanessa wasn't just after the business. He believed she had a longer-term plan, one that involved discrediting you completely and taking full control of the estate." Ethan's stomach tightened. "But the will, she didn't know about the changes," Noah said. "She thought everything was still split between you two, and she believed she could force your hand in court if she made you look unstable." Ethan stared at the floor. He remembered the way Vanessa had said, "Ethan needs help. He needs to face that." She had laid the groundwork even then. Only now did he realize how calculated it had been. "So what do we do?" Ethan finally asked. Voice low. "We fight," Noah said simply. "Legally, strategically, and publicly, if we have to." Ethan's hands tightened. He didn't want a war. He wanted honesty, loyalty, love. But those things had already been taken from him. What was left was the truth, and the truth demanded a fight. Noah placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder firm, grounding. "You're not alone," he said quietly. "Your father made sure of that." A lump formed in Ethan's throat. He nodded, slowly finding his breath. Tomorrow, everything would change, and this time, he wouldn't be blindsided. He would be ready. For Lucas, for Vanessa, for whatever else his father had tried to shield him from. He looked at the letter once more. "You are stronger than you think." For the first time, Ethan believed he might be. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, visions of Vanessa and Lucas laughing behind his back, scheming, planning flashed like broken shards of glass. He wandered the workshop for hours instead, letting his fingers brush over every tool, every unfinished project, everything that still smelled like his father. It grounded him, kept him from unraveling completely. Just before dawn, Noah left to gather more documents and prepare a plan with Amelia. "Try to rest," he'd said, but they both knew he wouldn't. Rest was impossible. Not with the truth lodged in his chest, like a splinter he couldn't pull out. By the time Ethan finally stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The world was washed clean. As if mocking him, his life hadn't been washed clean. It had been hollowed out. He drove home slowly, fingers tight around the steering wheel. His house, the one he shared with Vanessa, felt tainted now. But he had to go back. He had to gather anything that belonged to him before the storm escalated. When he pulled into the driveway, he noticed immediately that the lights were on. Vanessa was home. His stomach tightened, but anger, new and sharp, rose to meet the fear. She didn't get to intimidate him anymore. Not after last night. Not after Noah's revelations. He stepped inside. Vanessa was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, a half-finished glass of wine beside her. The bottle next to it was nearly empty. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but the moment she saw him, the vulnerability vanished, and something calculative took its place. "You didn't come home last night," she said. "Do you know how that makes you look?" He almost laughed. "Everything makes me look bad in your world. Doesn't it?" "I'm serious, Ethan," her voice sharpened. "People saw you walk out after the service. They saw how emotional you were. If you're not careful, it could be used against you." He stared at her, stunned not because her words were surprising, but because she said them without shame. Against me, he repeated. Vanessa, you served me divorce papers at my father's funeral. She flinched, just barely, but recovered quickly. I explained why. No, Ethan said quietly. You didn't. You said vague things about not being seen, about me being emotionally unstable. You tried to rewrite our marriage, right in front of everyone. Her arms crossed. A defensive posture. You haven't exactly been present these past months. He knew where this was going. She was trying to bait him, make him react emotionally, lose control, anything she could twist into a narrative supporting her accusations. He inhaled slowly, grounding himself. I was taking care of my dying father, he said. You weren't. Her jaw clenched. That's not fair. Neither is conspiring with my cousin. There it was. The mask cracked. Vanessa's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Shock, fear, guilt, all flashing through her expression before she buried them under a cold glare. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, and I'm not going to let you accuse me of something insane just because you're hurt. Insane. Ethan stepped closer. Then tell me why you were meeting Lucas behind my back. The silence was immediate and telling. Vanessa's gaze flicked away, just for a heartbeat, but enough. Enough to confirm what Noah had said. Enough to break whatever remained of Ethan's denial. You think Lucas is trustworthy, she laughed bitterly. Ethan, he hates you. He always has. If anyone is manipulating you, it's him. The irony nearly choked him. Funny? That's almost word for word what I read in your messages. Her eyes snapped to his. You went through my phone? No, he said. My father hired a private investigator. Months ago. This time, the shock lasted longer. Long enough for fear to surface clearly in her eyes. Richard, she whispered. He was watching me. He was protecting me. Ethan said. From you. Vanessa's breath hitched. The wine glass trembled slightly in her hand. Ethan, whatever you think you saw, stop lying, he said sharply. Stop pretending. Her lips parted, ready to defend herself, but then she stopped. Something in Ethan's voice must have reached her. Something that told her he wasn't the same man she'd manipulated for years. For a moment, she looked almost human lost. But then she shook her head, straightened, and slipped back into the persona she wore so naturally. Fine, she said quietly. You want honesty. Lucas and I talked, yes, because you weren't listening, because Richard was suffocating the business, because the company needed direction. Ethan let out a hollow laugh. Is that what you told yourself? It's the truth. No, he said. The truth is, you wanted a way in, and Lucas wanted money. You don't know anything, she snapped. You've always lived in your father's shadow, and you wanted to profit from it. Her nostrils flared. I wanted to save our future. Our future. Ethan shook his head. No, you wanted to save your future with Lucas. She didn't deny it. Her silence twisted inside him. Pain flared again. But behind it something colder formed. Resolve, clarity. The kind his father had taught him to find in moments of chaos. Get out, Ethan said. Vanessa blinked. What? You heard me. Pack your things and leave. You can't kick me out, she hissed. This house is ours. Not anymore, Ethan said. My father changed the will. Everything is frozen under legal protection. You don't get to touch any of it. Her eyes darkened. You don't understand what you're doing. No, he said softly. For the first time, I do. She took a step toward him. Ethan, if you go through with this, it's going to get ugly. Really ugly. It already is. You think I won't fight, she demanded. You think I'll just walk away with nothing. No, he said. I think you'll fight. I think you'll lie, manipulate, threaten. But I'm not alone anymore. She stared at him, studying him as if seeing a different man, one she couldn't easily bend. You think Amelia is on your side? Vanessa asked. She's protecting the business, not you. She's protecting both. Ethan said. Because unlike you, she cares about what my father wanted. Vanessa's jaw clenched so tightly he could see the muscles twitching. She grabbed her purse with a jerking motion. This isn't over, she whispered. No, Ethan said. It's just beginning. She shot him a final, venomous look and stormed out the front door, slamming it behind her. The vibration echoed through the house, rattling picture frames, shelves, floors like the aftershock of an earthquake. For several seconds, Ethan stood frozen, listening, breathing. Was it over? No. But a line had been drawn, and he had drawn it. Slowly, he walked through the house, through rooms that suddenly felt foreign echoes of laughter, of shared meals, of whispered promises dissolving into dust. He paused at the dining room table, the same place Vanessa once convinced him to sign documents he barely read. Just trust me, she'd said with a smile, the same smile she used on Lucas. Apparently, he went upstairs next. Her perfume lingered in the hall, clinging to the air like a ghost he couldn't shake. When he opened the bedroom door, the faint sound of drawers opening caught his attention. Vanessa had left it cracked. Her closet was open, half empty already, clothes missing, shoes gone, jewelry boxes overturned. She had known. The moment she saw fear in her own reflection earlier, she knew the plan had failed, and she wasn't sticking around for the fallout. On the vanity was one last thing. Her wedding ring, placed neatly, deliberately, mockingly. Ethan stared at it for a long time, feeling nothing, no ache, no longing, just emptiness. He picked it up and closed his fist around it. Then he let it go. It clattered onto the hardwood floor. He didn't look back. Instead, he walked to the window and stared out at the street where Vanessa's car disappeared minutes ago. The sky was lightening, painted gray and pale pink by the rising sun. The beginning of a new day, a new reality, a new war. His father had warned him, had prepared him. And now the truth was no longer hidden. But the fight wasn't over. If anything, the real battle was about to begin. And Ethan Cole, broken, grieving, betrayed, finally understood something. He wasn't fighting for Vanessa, or the marriage, or even the company. He was fighting for himself, for his father, for the life they built together. And he wasn't alone. He was stronger than he thought. And tomorrow, he would prove it. The sun had barely risen when Ethan found himself back in the workshop, gripping a mug of coffee he hadn't tasted. He hadn't slept. He wasn't sure he could sleep again. Not after everything that had surfaced. The building felt like the only place left where he wasn't suffocating. The air smelled like sawdust and memory. And for the first time, that no longer comforted him. It reminded him too much of the promises he failed to protect. He paced the length of the room, pausing every few steps to glance at the door as if expecting someone. Vanessa, Lucas, trouble in some form to burst in, but no one came. The silence felt unnatural after the chaos of the previous day. Eventually, exhaustion forced him into Richard's old stool. He folded forward, burying his face in his hands. His father was gone. His wife was not who he thought. His cousin wanted to destroy everything Richard built. The business, the estate. In his family, none of it felt safe anymore. He didn't know how long he stayed like that before the sound of a car pulling into the parking lot jolted him. Upright, instinctively, he reached for the nearest tool, a chisel, before realizing how ridiculous that was. He wasn't being hunted, or was he? After what he'd learned about Lucas, the thought didn't feel so impossible. Then he heard the familiar knock, 3 short, 2 long. "Ethan," Amelia called softly. "It's me." He unlocked the door. Amelia stepped inside, dressed in a charcoal gray suit that still looked immaculate despite the early hour. Her hair was pulled back into a low bun, and she carried a leather case under one arm. She took one look at him and sighed. "You haven't slept." "I can't," he said, voice rough. "There's too much in my head." "Well," she said gently, You're going to need your strength. Today is important. Ethan's pulse quickened. What's happening today? Amelia set her case on the workbench. The reading of your father's will. It was scheduled for this afternoon. Ethan froze. He had forgotten. Somehow, of all the chaos, he'd forgotten the one thing Richard had planned down to the last detail. Will Vanessa be there? Ethan asked. Amelia hesitated. Yes, legally, she has a right to be. Even though she filed for divorce yesterday, the court hasn't processed anything. She's still considered family. And Lucas? Yes, him too. Ethan exhaled shakily. He wasn't ready. Not emotionally, not mentally, but there was no avoiding it. Amelia watched him carefully. We can postpone, if you want. No. His answer was immediate, firm. My father planned for today. I owe him the respect of showing up. And you'll have support, she said. Noah is already gathering the rest of the evidence. He'll meet us before the reading. Ethan nodded. He appreciated the reassurance, even if he didn't feel steady. Amelia began laying out documents, spreading them across the workbench in neat stacks. Ethan watched her work precise, calm, methodical. She reminded him of his father in that way. Richard always said both woodworking and law required the same things: patience, precision, and the ability to see hidden flaws before they broke something important. Ethan, Amelia said softly, not looking up from the papers, I need to prepare you. What your father left behind. It won't be easy for some people to hear. Some people, he echoed. You mean Vanessa and Lucas? Yes. Do they know what's coming? No, she said. Richard kept the updates confidential. Even I haven't seen everything. He sealed several documents with instructions that they only be opened with all key parties present. Ethan's heartbeat stuttered. So you don't know what he changed? I know the general structure, Amelia said, but the specifics? No, only that he included clauses designed to protect you. Ethan swallowed. His father had been preparing for a betrayal Ethan refused to see. He sat down on the stool again. Do you think he knew? About Vanessa? About Lucas? Amelia paused before answering. He had suspicions. Strong ones. That's why he hired Noah. But Richard wasn't the type to act without evidence. So he created safeguards. For you. For the business. Ethan rubbed his temples. I wish he had told me. I know, she said gently. But he also knew you, and he knew that if he confronted you with accusations without proof, you would have defended them. Both of them. He didn't want to put you through that while he was dying. The truth cut deep. Ethan had always tried to see the best in people, even when the best wasn't real. So what happens now? He finally asked. We go to the reading, she said. We let the will speak for Richard, and we let the evidence speak for itself. And Vanessa, Ethan asked, what if she tries something else? What if she won't, Amelia said firmly. Not after last night. Noah already filed protective measures. Legally, you're insulated from her until the divorce proceedings begin. Ethan blinked. Already, Amelia's lips curved into a faint smile. Your father didn't trust your wife. She met his eyes, but he trusted me, and he put the right tools in place. Emotion surged through Ethan: gratitude, grief, guilt, all tangled together. Thank you, he whispered. You don't need to thank me, she said. You're Richard's son. He would have walked through fire for you. This is the least I can do. Her words almost broke him. A sudden knock at the door interrupted them. Relax, Amelia murmured, seeing Ethan stiffen. That's Noah's knock. 3 sharp taps. Ethan opened the door. Noah looked tired, but determined. He carried a thick folder and a flash drive tucked into an evidence sleeve. I have everything, Noah said. And you're not going to like any of it. Ethan braced himself. Just tell me. Noah stepped inside, his voice low and steady. Last night, after I left here, I pulled the final threads. Bank statements, calls, location data. Vanessa and Lucas weren't just planning to take the business, they were preparing to liquidate assets and leave the state. Ethan's pulse quickened. Leave, yes. Based on their emails, she wanted to move out west. Lucas wanted offshore access. Ethan felt sick. Vanessa hadn't just betrayed him. She had planned a whole new life with someone else, built on top of the ruins she intended to leave behind. Your father saw it coming, Noah said. His tone dark. He didn't know every detail, but he knew enough. Ethan gripped the workbench. Why didn't he confront me? He tried, Noah said softly. But every time he got close, you defended her. He didn't want to hurt you, not while he was dying. Ethan looked away. Shame heated his skin. Noah continued. The reading today won't be easy. Lucas will be angry. Vanessa will do everything she can to twist the narrative. But Amelia and I will be there. You focus on staying calm. That's all. Ethan nodded slowly. Calm, he murmured. I can do that. He wasn't sure if it was true, but he had to try. Hours later, he found himself standing in the hallway of the law office, staring at the closed door where the reading would take place. Laughter echoed faintly from behind it, light, dismissive, familiar. Vanessa, Lucas. Together. Amelia placed a steadying hand on his arm. Are you ready? Ethan inhaled deeply. No, he said honestly, but I'm here. That's enough, she said. Noah pushed open the door. Ethan stepped inside. Vanessa sat elegantly in a leather chair, her expression softening with practiced concern when she saw him as if the past 2 days hadn't happened. Lucas leaned back casually beside her, his eyes sharp and assessing. The attorney conducting the reading stood at the head of the long mahogany table. Shall we begin? He asked. Ethan took his seat. The door shut behind them with a heavy click, and the truth Richard Cole's final, unfiltered truth was about to be revealed. The room felt colder the moment the door closed. Ethan could sense the tension pressing against the walls, heavy and electric, as if the air itself was bracing for impact. Vanessa sat with her legs crossed, the picture of poise, though her hands gripped the armrests a little too tightly. Lucas lounged beside her. Pretending a confidence Ethan now recognized as performance, a borrowed arrogance built on lies, Amelia took her place at Ethan's left, Noah at his right. He didn't realize until now how much he needed their presence. Two anchors, keeping him from drifting into the undertow of betrayal and grief. Across the polished table, Mr. Hartley, his father's longtime estate lawyer, adjusted his glasses and shuffled the stack of sealed documents. He was older now. Lines etched deep into his face, but his voice remained steady. Thank you all for being here. Hartley began. Today, we will read the last will and testament of Richard Allen Cole. As per his request, all primary beneficiaries and relevant family members must be present. No recordings are allowed. What is said in this room remains confidential until the will is executed. Lucas smirked faintly. Sounds dramatic. Hartley paused, unimpressed. I assure you, Mr. Cole, your cousin took this very seriously. Vanessa leaned forward slightly, her voice smooth. We all did. Richard meant a lot to the family. Ethan forced himself not to react. Her ability to weaponize sincerity used to fool him. Now, it made his skin crawl. Hartley broke the seal on the first envelope. Before we begin, Richard left a statement to be read aloud. One possessed it. Vanessa smiled politely, as if expecting a sentimental message, something she could use to manipulate the room. But when Hartley began reading, her smile froze. To my family, if you are hearing this, then I am gone. And perhaps long before any of us truly expected, I have lived a life of work, of mistakes, of lessons, and most importantly, love. My greatest pride is my son, Ethan. He is a good man, better than I ever was, and it is because of him that I must be clear about what comes next. Hartley looked up briefly, eyes flicking to Ethan as if to steady him. Ethan's chest tightened. The lawyer continued reading. In the last years of my life, I have become aware of actions both subtle and overt, meant to manipulate my son and compromise our family business. I will not name these individuals directly in this prologue. Their identities will be clear soon enough. My responsibility was to create a structure that protects Ethan and preserves the legacy we built with our hands. Amelia clasped her hands calmly in her lap. Vanessa shifted in her seat, composure cracking by a hairline fracture. Lucas's smirk vanished. Hartley paused. The remainder will be explained through the legal documents. He opened a second envelope. This pertains to ownership of Cole Woodworks, the primary asset of the estate. Vanessa straightened, her eyes sharpening. Lucas leaned forward. Finally invested. Ethan held his breath. Hartley cleared his throat. Effective immediately. Cole Woodworks, including all properties, patents, designs, and assets, is bequeathed 100% to my son, Ethan Cole. Silence, then, "What?" Vanessa blurted. Lucas swore under his breath. Hartley continued as if neither existed. Additionally, I have placed the company in a protective trust that activates automatically upon my death. Ethan is the sole trustee and beneficiary. No spouse, relative, or outside party may claim ownership, partial or otherwise. Vanessa's face drained of color. Lucas's jaw tightened until a vein bulged at his temple. Ethan's heart hammered. He had suspected his father protected him, but not this thoroughly. Vanessa recovered quickly, planting her elbows delicately on the table. This is absurd. Richard and I discussed expanding the business together. He trusted my vision. Hartley raised a brow. Mrs. Cole, I assure you, Richard and I reviewed these documents extensively. His intentions were explicit. Lucas leaned forward aggressively. There's no way he cut the entire family out. I've been part of that business since I was a kid. Hartley's tone didn't budge. You were employed there for 2 summers. Richard did not consider that significant company involvement. Lucas's eyes flashed with anger. Then Ethan can decide. He knows I deserve a role. Ethan turned to him, feeling something cold settle in his stomach. You deserve nothing, he said quietly. Vanessa's expression snapped toward him. Ethan, don't do this. We can resolve this peacefully. Peacefully, he repeated. You tried to steal my father's legacy while he was dying. Lucas shot to his feet. That's bullshit. Noah stood immediately, body poised, like a wall between Ethan and danger. His voice was low but lethal. Sit down, Lucas. Lucas glared, but the warning in Noah's eyes kept him from moving. Hartley cleared his throat again, flipping to another document. There is more. Richard also left a personal letter addressed to you, Ethan, a separate one from the note he gave you earlier. Ethan blinked. Another? Yes, Hartley said, and it contains specific instructions regarding certain accounts and protections. He handed the sealed envelope to Ethan. The weight of it pressed into Ethan's palm. He didn't open it. Not yet. Now, Hartley continued. We must address Richard's provisions for his extended family. Vanessa leaned forward again. Lucas's chin lifted. Richard has allocated a modest financial gift for his nephew Lucas Cole, contingent on a mandatory audit of any debts or outstanding legal matters. Lucas scoffed. A modest gift. Hartley remained unchanged. $5,000. The room went silent. Then Lucas laughed an ugly, cracking sound. 5,000. That's an insult. That's not even... It's more than you're entitled to. Amelia cut in calmly. Lucas's face reddened. You think you're so righteous, Lucas, Hartley said sharply. Respect the proceedings. Lucas sat back down hard, chair scraping loudly. Vanessa folded her arms. And what about me? What did he leave me? She sounded confident, too confident. As if she still believed she had leverage, Hartley opened the final envelope. Richard left you something, Mrs. Cole? Vanessa smirked slightly. Masking her relief, Hartley read, To Vanessa Cole, I leave clarity. Her smirk evaporated. Hartley continued, You have brought hardship to my son. You have manipulated his good heart and tried to take what you have not earned. Therefore, I leave no monetary inheritance, but I do leave you the truth, which will be made evident through legal counsel." Vanessa's face flushed red. He can't do that." "He can," Hartley said, "and he did." "This is outrageous," she snapped, rising to her feet. "He was influenced. This is a setup." Amelia stood slowly, her voice calm but unshakable. "Sit down, Vanessa." Vanessa turned on her. You did this. You manipulated him. You made him change the will." Amelia didn't blink. "I executed his wishes." Vanessa slammed her hands onto the table. "This isn't legit. There were conversations, plans, expectations." "Expectations aren't contracts," Noah said. "And plans built on deceit," Amelia added, "are not legally binding." Vanessa's breath came fast, shallow. She turned her fury on Ethan. "You think you're some victim," she spat. "You think you're so pure. You're weak. You always have been. And now you're just letting them control you." Ethan met her gaze. For the first time since the funeral, he felt calm. "Dad wasn't controlling me," he said. "He was protecting me." Vanessa let out a bitter laugh. "Protecting you? From what?" "From you," he said softly. "And from Lucas." Lucas slammed a fist onto the table. "This is bullshit. He can't block me out. I'm blood." "You betrayed blood," Amelia said without raising her voice, "and Richard saw through you." Lucas looked like he wanted to lunge across the table, but Noah stepped forward, expression cold enough to freeze oxygen. "Try it," Noah said. "Please." Lucas stayed in his seat, barely. Hartley closed the folder. "The will is final. It cannot be contested without substantial evidence of coercion." Vanessa pointed at Amelia. "There was coercion. By her." "Actually," Amelia said, "every meeting with Richard regarding the will was recorded. You're more than welcome to request the footage. Might even learn a thing or two about what he really thought of you." Vanessa froze. She knew. They all knew. The recordings would expose every lie she had built her life upon. A tremor went through her. Lucas looked at her, disbelief turning to disgust. "You said it was handled," he whispered harshly. "You said he trusted you." "Shut up," Vanessa hissed. "No," Lucas snapped. "You screwed us. Both of you screwed yourselves," Ethan said, cutting them off. His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was final. Vanessa stared at him, realizing for the first time that the power she once held over him was gone. Lucas sank back in his chair, face pale. Amelia straightened, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "We're finished here." Noah gathered the documents. Hartley nodded solemnly. "Your father would be proud of you today, Ethan." Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't feel proud. He felt shattered, but he also felt something else, something new, direction. As he stood, Vanessa called out one last time, "Ethan." He turned slowly. Her eyes glistened, not with sorrow, but with panic. "We can fix this. You don't have to destroy everything." "I'm not destroying anything," he said. "You already did." She reached toward him. "Ethan, please." He stepped back. "No," he said quietly. "We're done." Her face twisted in a silent scream. Lucas cursed under his breath. Noah opened the door. Amelia walked with Ethan into the hallway, away from betrayal and toward whatever came next. For the first time in days, he breathed without pain. But the fight was far from over, because Vanessa and Lucas were not the kind of people who walked away from a loss. They were the kind of people who retaliated, and Ethan knew they weren't finished. Not yet. The hallway outside the conference room felt strangely quiet compared to the storm that had erupted within. Ethan leaned against the cool wall, exhaling a tremor he hadn't realized he'd been holding. His pulse was still racing, but the shaking in his hands had finally begun to settle. Amelia stood beside him, calm as ever, while Noah paced a short distance away, his mind clearly moving through contingency plans, legal strategies, and protective measures all at once. Through the frosted glass of the door behind them, Ethan could faintly hear Vanessa's raised voice and Lucas's frustrated hiss. Their alliance had begun to crack the moment the truth stripped away the illusions they'd built. Now they bickered like animals, caught in the light. "They're unraveling," Noah muttered, without turning. "Good. Makes them sloppy." Ethan didn't answer. He didn't trust his voice yet. What he felt wasn't triumph, not even relief. The truth had cost him too much to celebrate. But there was something settling in him, a fragile but growing steadiness, a sense that he wasn't helpless anymore. Amelia touched his arm. "You did well in there." He huffed a humorless breath. "I barely did anything. You stood your ground," she said. Sometimes that's the hardest thing. Before he could respond, the conference room door swung open. Vanessa stepped out first, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor. Her eyes were red, but not from grief, more from rage. Held barely in check, Lucas followed, face flushed, jaw clenched so tightly it was a wonder it didn't crack. Vanessa stormed past without looking at Ethan. Lucas didn't. He stopped, just long enough to stare Ethan down, venom simmering beneath the surface. "This isn't over," he growled. Ethan met his gaze. The weight of everything his father had warned him about settling into place. "It is for you." Lucas took a step closer. But Noah inserted himself between them. Before another word could be spoken, his presence was enough to force Lucas backward with a muttered curse. "Watch your back." Lucas spat at Ethan as he retreated down the hallway. "You think that will protect you? You think any of this is fair?" Ethan didn't respond. Fair? There was nothing fair about any of this. Vanessa whirled around from the elevator, pushing the button repeatedly, as if she could bend time with her frustration. "Lucas, just get over here." But Lucas didn't follow. He spun around, storming toward the stairs instead. Vanessa cursed loudly, glaring at Ethan again as she jabbed the elevator button. When the doors opened, she stepped inside, her final words slicing through the air like a blade. "You'll regret this." Then the doors slid shut, leaving behind nothing but the fading echo of her fury. Noah let out a breath. Well, that went exactly as expected. Amelia turned to Ethan. "You ready to head out?" He nodded. But the weight of the moment, the magnitude of what had just unfolded, settled heavy across his shoulders. The next few hours passed in a blur. They left the law office together, a united front. Noah drove straight to the courthouse to file the necessary documents. Amelia escorted Ethan back to his house to review what legal steps were next. Emergency protections, injunctions, the initial divorce response. But when Ethan opened the front door, something felt wrong. Not visibly, not tangibly, just wrong. The house was too quiet, too still. He stepped inside cautiously. Amelia noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" "I don't know," he said softly. "It just feels different." They walked through the living room. Nothing had been moved, nothing overtly disturbed. But the silence pressed in on him. Then he saw it. On the coffee table, a single object, Vanessa's wedding ring. He had thrown it on the bedroom floor last night. Now it sat perfectly centered on the table, as if placed with deliberate intent. Amelia's brows furrowed. "Did you leave it there?" "No," Ethan whispered. "I haven't been home." They exchanged a look. Vanessa had come back, quietly. While he was gone, while the will was being read, Noah would later confirm she still had a key. Ethan's stomach twisted not from fear, but from the violation. Vanessa entering the house like she still owned it, like she still owned him. Amelia picked up the ring with a handkerchief, examining it like evidence. "She wanted you to see this." "Why?" "Because she's manipulating the narrative." Amelia said, "She wants to look like the abandoned wife, the loyal one, the victim." Ethan shut his eyes. "She's going to twist everything, isn't she?" "Yes," Amelia replied, "but we'll counter it." He sank onto the sofa, his voice fraying. "I don't want to fight her." "I know," Amelia said softly, "but you have to." He pressed his palms into his eyes. How did I not see any of this? Because you loved her, Amelia said, and she used that. The words stung, but they were true. A knock at the door jolted them both. Ethan tensed. Seriously, Amelia motioned for him to stay seated. She approached the door cautiously, peering through the peephole. Then she exhaled. It's Noah. Ethan opened the door. Noah stepped inside, shaking rain from his coat. We need to talk. It's nodding. Amelia crossed her arms. What happened? Noah dropped a manila envelope on the table. I pulled the last of the recovered files. You need to see this. Ethan hesitated. More evidence. Worse, Noah said. Context. Amelia's expression tightened. What kind of context? The kind that proves Vanessa wasn't planning this alone, Noah said. She and Lucas were meeting with an outside buyer. Ethan froze. Buyer, he echoed. Yes, Noah said. A competitor. Someone who's been trying to acquire Cole Woodworks for years. Amelia's eyes darkened. Harland, Wick, Noah nodded. Exactly them. They wanted a piece of the original Cole design patents. Lucas promised he could make it happen once he maneuvered himself into ownership. Vanessa negotiated on his behalf. Ethan's breath caught. His father's designs were sacred, handcrafted blueprints. Techniques Richard had spent decades refining. The idea that Lucas intended to sell them to a corporation made Ethan nauseous. When were these meetings? Amelia asked. 2 months ago, Noah replied. And one last week. Ethan's vision blurred at the edges. Last week, while Dad was dying, Noah's silence confirmed it. Ethan sank back against the sofa. The betrayal, another knife in a heart already carved open. His father had been fighting for breath while Lucas and Vanessa plotted to sell his life's work. Amelia knelt in front of Ethan, her voice soft but firm. Listen to me. You're going to be okay. This is awful, but it's also powerful. They've damned themselves with their own greed. Noah nodded. We have enough evidence to bury them legally. Ethan laughed bitterly. I'm not trying to bury them. No, Noah agreed. But they tried to bury you. And they failed. He handed Ethan another document. Ethan unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a transcript, partially redacted, from one of Vanessa's conversations with Lucas. Vanessa, he'll crumble after the funeral. That's when he'll sign. Just make sure Harlan's rep is ready. Lucas, he will. He's soft. Always has been. Vanessa, exactly. And once it's done, we're free. Ethan's hand tightened around the paper until the edges curled. Free from him, from his father's legacy, from the life she pretended to build with him. A deep calm washed over him, not peaceful, but resolute. This is enough, Ethan said quietly. For what? Amelia asked. For court, he said. For whatever comes next. Noah exhaled. Then we move forward. But Amelia wasn't finished. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small USB drive. And this, she said, is the recording your father left. Ethan's stomach clenched. Recording? Yes. Voice and video. He made it the week he hired Noah. Ethan almost couldn't breathe. Why didn't you tell me? Because he wanted it played at the right moment, Amelia said gently. And Ethan, that moment is now. She handed him the drive. His hands trembled as he accepted it. Richard had prepared everything, protected everything, including his son. Ethan swallowed hard. Let's play it. Amelia connected it to his laptop. The screen flickered, and there he was. Richard Cole, thinner, paler, but strong-eyed, steady, alive. Ethan, Richard said on the video. His voice worn but firm. If you're watching this, it means things have gotten worse. Worse than I hoped, but not worse than I feared. Ethan's vision blurred. But listen to me, son. You're not alone. You never have been. The people who love you will stand with you. And the people who don't, well, now you know who they are. Noah looked away. as if giving Ethan privacy. On screen, Richard drew a slow breath. Be brave, be smart, and be the man I know you are. The screen went dark. Ethan sat there, shaking, but not with fear, with clarity, with strength, with purpose. He wiped his eyes. Okay, he whispered. Let's finish this. He wasn't running anymore. He wasn't doubting anymore. And he wasn't breaking anymore. Not now. Not after everything. Not after hearing his father's voice one last time. Because Richard was right. He wasn't alone. Not anymore. The room was utterly silent after the video ended. The kind of silence that felt almost sacred. Ethan stared at the blank screen long after it faded to black, as if willing his father's face to reappear. The last words echoed inside him steady, grounding, painfully tender. You're not alone. Be the man I know you are. For the first time since Richard died, Ethan felt something besides grief and betrayal. He felt anchored. The chaos around him hadn't vanished, but it no longer felt like it was swallowing him whole. He had direction now, a purpose, and people standing beside him, not because they wanted something from him, but because they believed in him. Amelia quietly closed the laptop, giving him space without intruding. Noah crossed his arms and leaned against the counter, waiting, watching, assessing not just Ethan's emotional state, but the battle that lay ahead. Ethan finally exhaled, the sound shaky but clear. All right, he murmured. Tell me what happens next. Noah stepped forward. Next, we prepare for war. Not loud, not dramatic, legal war, strategic war. The kind your father expected. Ethan nodded. Good. I want to see them held accountable. A pause lingered in the air, heavy, meaningful. Noah exchanged a brief glance with Amelia before speaking again. Then there's something you need to know before we proceed. Ethan tensed. What now? When tension, Amelia opened the manila envelope Noah had brought earlier, pulling out a thick stack of papers covered in spreadsheets and transfer logs. We traced the money Lucas took from the company's accounts. You said he was drowning in debt, Ethan said quietly. He was, Noah replied, but what we didn't know until now is who he owed money to. Amelia slid one sheet across the table. Ethan looked at it, but the numbers blurred. He wasn't an accountant. He didn't understand all the codes and abbreviations. What am I looking at? What? Transactions tied to Harland and Wick, Amelia said. The competitor. Ethan felt his chest clench. He was taking money from the company to pay them. No, Noah corrected. He was taking money and paying off a third-party fixer who works for them. Unofficially, Lucas was using company funds to keep himself afloat long enough to betray you and your father. Ethan pressed a hand to the table, grounding himself. He was going to sell them Dad's designs, wasn't he? Yes, Amelia said. But that's not all. Ethan looked up sharply. Her tone said this was worse, far worse than what he'd already seen. Lucas also siphoned personal funds from your father's medical account. The world tilted. What? Ethan whispered. What do you mean he? Noah spoke gently. Lucas withdrew money meant for Richard's treatment. Over months, small amounts, so it wouldn't trigger an alert. Ethan's vision blurred at the edges. His pulse roared in his ears. He stole from his hospital fund, Ethan said slowly, the words scraping out of him like broken glass. He stole while my father was dying. Yes, Amelia confirmed softly. The grief that ripped through Ethan was not quiet this time. It was loud, violent, devastating. His hands curled into fists so tight his knuckles turned white. His father had been sick, and Ethan hadn't noticed the missing money. He'd been too consumed with Vanessa, too overwhelmed by work, too exhausted to see what was happening. Lucas had taken advantage of all of it. He staggered backward until his spine hit the wall. His breath came in short, painful bursts. How could he do that? How could anyone do that? Amelia approached, placing a steadying hand on his shoulder. Ethan, Lucas is not like you, or Richard. He's someone who sees people as stepping stones. Your father tried to give him chances, but he chose greed every time. Ethan closed his eyes. He could feel anger rising, not sharp and impulsive, but deep and precise, like a blade forged slowly in heat. What else? He forced out. Tell me everything. Noah nodded and handed him another sheet. This one wasn't numbers. It was a transcript, a recovered phone call between Lucas and Harlan's representative. Lucas, don't worry about Richard. He's weak now. Once he's gone, Ethan's the easiest person on the planet to pressure. Representative and the wife. Lucas. Vanessa. She's on board as long as she gets her cut. She can handle Ethan emotionally. He trusts her. Representative, then move fast. If the old man updates the will, we lose leverage. Lucas. Already working on that. Vanessa's got a plan. Ethan's grip on the paper tightened until his fingers trembled. Vanessa, his wife. She hadn't been a passive participant. She had been the one steering the ship. Amelia looked him directly in the eyes. Richard suspected this, Ethan. That's why he changed the will when he did. He barely had the strength to sign the documents, but he refused to leave you unprotected. Ethan's breath broke again, but this time, not from pain, from awe, from grief, mixed with gratitude so profound it made his knees weak. His father had saved him. Even as he died, Lucas is going down, Noah said quietly. The embezzlement, the medical theft, the collusion with Harlan, he won't survive this legally. And Vanessa? Ethan asked. Noah's jaw tightened. She's tied to almost every part of it. Not enough for criminal charges without more evidence, but enough to destroy her in divorce court. Enough to expose everything she hid. A wave of exhaustion washed over Ethan, but beneath it, something else took shape. Resolve. I want to confront them, he said. Amelia shook her head. Not yet. Why? Because confrontation requires emotion, she said. Strategy requires control. Noah nodded. If you face them now, they'll provoke you. They want you off balance. They want you to make mistakes. Ethan paced, the adrenaline forcing his body to move even as his mind reeled. What do we do? He asked. We prepare, Amelia said, for the divorce hearing, for the criminal investigation, for the estate battle. For everything they will throw at you, Ethan swallowed. I don't want to drag this out. You won't, Amelia said. The evidence will crush them, but they need to be handled properly. Noah stepped closer. And there's something else you need to understand. Ethan looked up. Lucas won't go quietly. Ethan nodded slowly. I know. No. Noah repeated firmly. You don't. He's desperate. When desperate people lose everything, they do stupid things, dangerous things. The warning prickled across Ethan's skin. Are you saying I'm in danger? Not immediate danger, Noah said. But you need to be cautious. Lucas isn't thinking rationally. He's scared, and scared people lash out. Amelia reached into her briefcase and pulled out a small device, a security fob. This activates a private security detail, she said. They won't hover. They'll stay discreet. But if something happens, they'll be there. Ethan stared at it. Do I really need this? Yes, they both said without hesitation. He didn't argue, not after everything he'd learned today. Not after realizing how deep Lucas's desperation ran. Not after understanding what Vanessa was capable of. He took the fob. Amelia exhaled. Good. The next step is preparing the filings. Divorce, fraud, asset protection. All of it. I'll handle the legal side, and I'll track any moves they make, Noah added. They won't catch us off guard again. Ethan nodded. Thank you. Both of you. Amelia smiled gently. You're not alone, Ethan. He blinked. Richard's words echoed softly in his mind. But for the first time, he believed them. After hours of planning, discussion, and gathering evidence, Amelia and Noah prepared to leave. The weight of documentation, recordings, transcripts, all of it felt like armor. Now, rather than chains, before she left, Amelia turned back to him. Ethan, whatever happens next, you handle it one step at a time. Don't let their chaos dictate your actions. He nodded. I won't. When the door finally closed and the house fell silent, Ethan sank into his father's old armchair. Moonlight spilled across the living room in pale ribbons. He stared at the ring. Vanessa left. At the shadows on the wall, at the pieces of his life scattered like debris after a hurricane. Then he breathed. Deep, steady, controlled. And for the first time since that awful moment at the funeral, he felt something close to strength. Not the loud, aggressive kind, the quiet, unshakable kind, the kind Richard had, and slowly, very slowly, Ethan realized something else. His story wasn't ending. It was changing, and he was ready to fight for it. The next morning arrived with an uneasy stillness, a quiet that didn't feel gentle, but tense, like the breath held before a lightning strike. Ethan sat at his kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee he hadn't taken a single sip of. He wasn't sure how long he'd been sitting there. Minutes, hours. Time didn't feel linear anymore. The events of the last 48 hours played like a relentless reel in his mind. Vanessa handing him divorce papers at the funeral, Lucas's furious outburst during the will reading, the evidence Noah uncovered. Every revelation had chipped something away from him, leaving him raw but strangely sharper, as if pain had carved him into someone new. His phone buzzed on the table, a text from an unknown number. You should have played along. This is about to get ugly. No name, no signature. But Ethan didn't need one. Lucas. He showed the message to Amelia when she arrived an hour later, carrying stacks of documents and her laptop. She skimmed it, her expression unmoved. He's posturing, she said. That message is a roar from a cornered animal. He's scared. Should I respond? Ethan asked. No. Should I block him? Not yet. He frowned. Why not? Because every message he sends is more evidence, she said, sliding her laptop onto the table. Let him incriminate himself. It'll make our job easier in court. Ethan nodded, though a flicker of unease gnawed at him. Lucas's desperation had teeth, and desperate people didn't always stick to the rules. Noah joined them moments later, this time carrying a tablet and a small black folder marked with a red seal. What's that? Ethan asked. Insurance, Noah said. Your father left one final file that he wanted opened, only after we had proof of collusion. Ethan's breath caught. More. Richard recorded everything, Noah said softly. Not because he didn't trust you, but because he didn't trust them. Amelia gestured toward the living room. We'll look at it after we review the filings. The next hour was a blur of legal terms, strategic planning, and documents Ethan had never imagined needing to read. Amelia explained everything with steady patience: asset inventory, protective orders, emergency motions, forensic audits. Her voice was firm, calm, and unyielding. Ethan tried to keep up, but there were moments he felt like he was drowning beneath words meant to save him. At one point, he set down a stack of papers and whispered, I don't know if I'm ready for all this. Amelia paused. Then she met his eyes not as a lawyer, but as someone who had witnessed too much brokenness to let another person fall through the cracks. You don't have to be ready, she said gently. You just have to show up. We'll handle the rest. It was exactly what he needed to hear. Finally, Noah tapped the black folder. Time, he said. Ethan's heart clenched. What's in there? A deeper motive, Noah said quietly. Why Vanessa and Lucas escalated their timeline. Why the betrayal became so aggressive. He opened the folder and slid out a USB drive. Ethan stared at it, pulse thudding in his neck. Another recording. Yes, Noah said. But unlike the last one, this one is not from Richard. Ethan's stomach dropped. Who then? Lucas, Noah said. And Vanessa. Ethan felt his chest tighten. When was it recorded? Noah hesitated. 2 days before your father died. Everything inside Ethan went still. Noah inserted the USB into his tablet and pressed play. The audio crackled with background noise. like a microphone hidden beneath fabric. Then voices emerged, familiar, sharp, unmistakable. Lucas. You need to push Ethan harder. Richard's getting worse. We're running out of time. Vanessa. He's exhausted. Lucas. I can't pressure him too much, or he'll break. Lucas. That's the point. If he's broken, he won't think. He'll sign whatever you put in front of him. Ethan flinched. He had been breaking. He had been vulnerable. And she had known. She had counted on it. Vanessa. And what about Richard? If he changes the will? Lucas. He won't. I've been distracting him, making him doubt himself. If he tries anything, we can test it. Vanessa, you're sure. Lucas. Vanessa, trust me. The old man's too weak to be a threat. He won't make it another week. Once he's gone. You hit Ethan with the papers. He falls apart. We take control. It's done. Ethan's body went rigid. He felt something inside him crack. Not loudly, not violently, but quietly. A slow, devastating fracture. Before he could process the weight of it, Noah pressed pause. Ethan stared ahead, unable to blink. He knew my dad was dying. Noah nodded. He capitalized on it. And Vanessa? Ethan's voice wavered. She didn't even hesitate. No, Noah said. She didn't. Amelia reached for Ethan's hand, an instinctive gesture, one that felt grounding. This is why your father changed the will, Ethan. He saw the signs. He sensed the danger, and he acted to protect you. Ethan swallowed hard. I should have protected him. No, Amelia said firmly. This isn't your fault. This was a calculated betrayal. You couldn't have known. Noah adjusted the tablet and pressed play again. Lucas. He doesn't suspect anything. Ethan's a mess. He'll fold, he always folds. Vanessa? And what about the business? What if Amelia spreads things around? Lucas. She won't. She's loyal to Richard, not Ethan. Without Richard, she's powerless. Noah paused the recording again. That, he said, was his biggest mistake. Amelia's eyes gleamed with quiet fire. Richard knew exactly who I was. And I knew exactly what he needed me to do. Will. Ethan let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped for days. What happens now? Amelia stood. We file the injunction today. Then we take this recording straight to the judge. After that, she glanced at Noah. We approach Harland and Wick. Ethan looked up sharply. Why them? Noah crossed his arms. To show them the evidence before they make any moves. Once they see Lucas and Vanessa had no legal authority, they'll cut ties immediately. Harland and Wick don't risk scandals. They'll distance themselves before you can blink. And Lucas? Ethan asked. Lucas? Noah said. Will crumble. Silence settled over them again, a heavy silence. But this one felt different. Not oppressive, not isolating. Powerful. Ethan felt something awaken inside him, a resolve deeper than anger, steadier than grief. His father had fought to protect him. Now it was his turn to fight back. I want to be there, he said, voice steady. When you speak to Harland and Wick, when you file everything, when you confront Lucas. Amelia tilted her head. Ethan, no, he said quietly. I need to face them, all of them, not for revenge, for closure, for strength, for Dad. Amelia studied him for a long moment, searching his expression. Finally, she nodded. Then we'll do it together. Just as they prepared to leave, Ethan's phone buzzed again. Another message. This time from Vanessa. We need to talk. Urgent. Please. It's not what you think. Ethan stared at the message for a long time, his heart painfully still. Once, he would have responded immediately. Once, he would have believed her. Now, he turned off the phone. No response. No opening. No more chances. He stood, grabbed his jacket, and faced Amelia and Noah. Let's go, he said. There was no tremor in his voice. Not anymore. He was ready for the legal battle, for the confrontation, for the truth, for everything his father prepared him to face. This wasn't a man breaking. This was a man rising. Ethan didn't know what he expected the headquarters of Harland and Wick to look like, but the sheer scale of the glass and steel monolith rising before him made his stomach twist. Sleek, cold, impenetrable. A building designed not for people but for power. As he stepped out of Noah's car, the morning sun bounced off the reflective facade, momentarily blinding him. Noah shut the car door with a quiet thud. "They won't expect this," he said. "They think you're still in the dark." Amelia adjusted the strap of her briefcase, posture straight, every step measured with authority. "And they certainly don't think Richard left evidence. We're about to turn their strategy on its head." Ethan nodded, though a tension coiled tight in his chest. He wasn't afraid, at least not in the way he used to be. This was different. This was the fear that came before a necessary fight, the kind that sharpened resolve instead of shattering it. Inside, the lobby was cavernous, polished floors reflecting towering abstract art pieces. Receptionists in tailored suits moved with precise efficiency. Ethan felt out of place, just a craftsman's son in a kingdom of corporate predators. But Amelia and Noah walked like they owned the building. "Mr. Hill is expecting us," Amelia told the front desk receptionist. There was a flicker of recognition fear, even when she said Noah's name. Clearly, Harland and Wick knew Noah Briggs, and not in a casual way. The receptionist typed quickly. "One moment, please. He'll meet you on the 28th floor." The elevator ride felt interminable. Ethan watched the numbers blink upward, each floor carrying him closer to the executives who had nearly dismantled everything Richard built. "Remember," Amelia said quietly, "you don't speak unless necessary. They'll try to provoke you. Don't let them. I won't react." Ethan said, "I'm past that now." Noah smirked. "Good, because these people thrive on weakness." The elevator chimed. Polished doors slid open onto a minimalist office suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A thin man in a navy suit rose from behind a large desk. His smile was polite, too polite. "Ms. Grant, Mr. Briggs, and you must be Ethan Cole." He extended a hand. Ethan didn't take it. If Mr. Hill was offended, he didn't show it. He motioned toward a small conference table. "Shall we?" Once seated, Hill folded his hands. "To what do I owe this unannounced visit?" Amelia placed a folder on the table. "We'll be brief. We're here to inform you that Harland and Wick is in possession of illegally obtained intellectual property belonging to Cole Woodworks." Hill's brows lifted. "That's quite an accusation, and it's accurate," Noah said coldly. "Your fixer has been working with Lucas Cole. We have records of their meetings, money transfers, and conversations." Hill remained calm, but a twitch tightened his jaw. "If a rogue employee overstepped, we'll investigate internally. That hardly warrants." Amelia cut him off. "We also have evidence your company knowingly attempted to negotiate for stolen assets." Hill leaned back slightly. "You have no proof the company sanctioned anything." Amelia opened the folder and slid a sheet across the table. Hill's eyes flicked downward. A transcript, one containing his own name. Hill's composure cracked. "Where did you get this? Your fixer was sloppy," Noah said, "and Richard Cole was smart." Ethan watched the color drain from Hill's face. He wasn't used to being cornered. Hill cleared his throat. "You're implying corporate involvement we didn't authorize. If you're considering litigation, we're not considering anything," Amelia said. "We are informing you. The Cole estate has substantial evidence, enough to destroy your company's reputation publicly." Richard anticipated this exact scenario. Hill looked genuinely startled. Richard Cole anticipated us. Ethan leaned forward, voice steady. "My father anticipated predators. Didn't matter who they were." Silence. Hill's gaze snapped to Ethan, really seeing him for the first time. Amelia continued, "We're prepared to file an injunction linking Harland and Wick to attempted intellectual property theft that would trigger regulatory investigations, investor panic, and immediate media scrutiny. Hill swallowed. "What do you want?" Noah's voice was ice. "All documents, communications, agreements, or attempts to acquire coal assets turned over immediately, and a written acknowledgement that Harland and Wick retracts any claim to Coal Woodworks, past or present, and," Amelia added, "you terminate your fixer, today." Hill exhaled shakily. "If I comply, this doesn't go public." "We honor Richard's privacy," Amelia said, "as long as you honor the law." Hill nodded stiffly. "You'll have everything within the hour." Amelia gathered her papers. Noah stood. Ethan remained seated a moment longer, studying the man who helped orchestrate the attempted theft of his father's legacy. Hill avoided his eyes. "Good." Ethan rose. As they stepped into the elevator, Noah let out a low whistle. "That went better than expected," Amelia smirked. "Hill is smart enough to know when he's been cornered." Ethan felt no satisfaction, only a grim sense of responsibility fulfilled. "Dad didn't trust them," he murmured. "Your father trusted his instincts," Amelia said gently. "And they were right." Back outside, Ethan drew in a breath of cold midday air. The sky was bright, a jarring contrast to the storm of emotions brewing inside him. They walked toward Noah's car, but before they reached it, Ethan stopped abruptly, across the street, standing beside a black sedan. Watching him, Lucas, Ethan's heartbeat jolted. Lucas's expression wasn't enraged this time. No scowl, no bravado. He looked hollow, desperate, dangerous in a different way. Noah noticed first. "Stay behind me." But Lucas lifted his hands as if surrendering. "Ethan, I just want to talk." "No," Ethan said instantly. Lucas took a step forward. Noah blocked him. "Back up," Noah warned. Lucas's voice cracked, the edges fraying like unraveling cloth. "Ethan, please, just listen. You don't understand. You think you do, but you don't." Ethan's jaw clenched. "There's nothing to understand." Lucas shook his head violently, eyes wild with something between panic and guilt. "You don't know what they were threatening me with. You don't know what Vanessa promised. I didn't have a choice." Ethan stepped forward despite Noah's outstretched arm. "You always had a choice." Lucas's breath hitched. "You think this is what I wanted? You think I wanted to betray Richard, to hurt you? I needed help. You needed money," Ethan said evenly, "and power. And you were willing to burn down our family to get it." Lucas flinched. "I'm your cousin." "Ethan, you were," Ethan said, "but not anymore." Lucas's face crumpled. For a moment, Ethan glimpsed the boy he grew up with, the cousin who carried him through the woods, who shared secrets at sleepovers, who promised to always have his back. That boy was gone, replaced by a man who chose greed over loyalty. Lucas whispered hoarsely, "She played me too, you know." Ethan didn't blink. "You let her." Something broke in Lucas's eyes. A car horn blared behind them. Noah nudged Ethan toward the car. "We're leaving. Now." Lucas didn't move as they pulled away. He just stood there, rooted to the sidewalk, watching the distance grow between them. Ethan watched him shrink in the rearview mirror until he disappeared entirely. Only then did he exhale. Noah drove in silence for several minutes before speaking. "Lucas, showing up like that. Not a good sign. I unresent." "He's unraveling," Amelia murmured. "But dangerous people unravel loudly." Ethan stared out the window. He looked lost. "Don't fall for it," Noah warned. "Remorse isn't the same as innocence." Ethan nodded, though a heaviness settled over him. Lucas was slipping, and slipping people made reckless decisions. They returned to the workshop afterward, Richard's safe haven, Ethan's sanctuary. The familiar scent of wood and varnish wrapped around him like a protective cloak. But today, even here, the air felt different. "Ethan," Amelia said gently, "we need to prepare for the next step." "What is that?" he asked, exhausted, serving Vanessa the formal divorce and fraud filings, she said, and rescinding her legal access to all shared property. Ethan swallowed. Okay. And then, Noah added, we meet with the district attorney about Lucas. Ethan's voice cracked on the next word. Criminal charges. Yes, Noah said. Medical theft, embezzlement, fraud, collusion. He's going to face all of it. Ethan sank into a stool, head in his hands. I don't want to destroy him. No, Noah said, but you deserve justice, and Richard deserves peace. Amelia took a step closer. And Ethan. Lucas made his choices. You're simply allowing the truth to be seen. Ethan nodded slowly. He understood. He accepted, but it didn't make it less painful. As afternoon sun slanted through the windows, casting long shadows across the workshop, Ethan realized the truth of something his father once said. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't building something. It's letting go of what's already broken. He inhaled deeply. Then he stood. I'm ready, he said. He wasn't sure if it was true, but he was going to act like it was. Because ready or not, the storm was here. And this time, he would not face it alone. The next 48 hours unfolded like the tightening coils of a trap. Every movement calculated, every breath deliberate, every shadow carrying the weight of possibility. Ethan barely slept. Amelia arranged filings. Noah coordinated with investigators, and Ethan moved between the workshop and his house, like a man caught between two worlds, the life he thought he had and the one he was being forced to claim. By early evening, the front porch light had just flickered on when Noah arrived with a folder stamped urgent. His jaw was set, muscles tight beneath his coat. Amelia followed moments later, the tension around her eyes betraying the composure she always tried to maintain. What happened? Ethan asked, heart already pounding. You need to sit, Amelia said. I'm fine, Ethan insisted, though his pulse was anything but. Tell me. Noah placed the folder on the kitchen table. We just received confirmation that Lucas attempted to withdraw money from one of the business accounts. Ethan stiffened. But those accounts are locked. They are, Amelia said. He tried anyway. And when the transaction was flagged, he escalated. What does that mean? Ethan asked. Noah exchanged a grim look with Amelia. He tried to force access. Ethan's breath stalled. He hacked the account. No, Noah said. Worse, he tried to break into the physical office. After hours, Ethan's stomach dropped. Is he in custody? No, Noah said. Security scared him off, but they didn't detain him. He ran. He ran, Ethan repeated. Ran where? Noah reached into the folder and slid a sheet of paper across the table. Grainy security footage showing Lucas sprinting across the parking lot, face contorted in panic. He's spiraling, Noah said darkly. And when people like Lucas spiral, they become unpredictable. Ethan felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. Does he know about the charges? Not yet, Amelia said. But he knows the walls are closing in, and he knows you're the reason. Ethan sank into the nearest chair. He didn't want to destroy Lucas, but Lucas was destroying himself faster than any court could. Where's Vanessa? Ethan asked quietly. Noah sighed. That's the other problem. End quote. Ethan's pulse quickened. What now? She checked into a hotel under a different name, Noah said. She's been ducking service. She knows we're trying to deliver the divorce and fraud filings. Of course she's hiding, Ethan muttered, rubbing his temples. That's what she does. She's trying to stall, Amelia added. To buy time. But she's making mistakes. She left a digital trail earlier today, checked in at a pharmacy, then withdrew cash at an ATM. She didn't realize we were tracking her movements legally the moment Noah filed for emergency protections. Ethan nodded slowly. The exhaustion in his bones ran deeper than fatigue. It was a weariness carved into him by betrayal, layered over grief. What does she want? He whispered. Control, Amelia answered. Or at least the illusion of it. She's scrambling to find leverage. And does she have any? Ethan asked. Noah shook his head. Not anymore. Still, Ethan could feel something looming. Something that hadn't yet revealed itself. What's next? He asked. We call the district attorney, Amelia said, and we push forward with the filings, but before that, we need to revisit something. Noah pulled out the final USB drive from the folder, small, silver, and chilling in its familiarity. Another recording. Ethan's breath hitched. From Dad. No, Amelia said. This one was found in your father's safe, hidden behind the drawer panel. It was labeled, for Ethan, only when it's too dangerous. Ethan's heart dropped into his stomach. Why didn't we see this before? He asked. It was concealed. Noah said. Richard must have hidden it, knowing it contained the worst of what he knew. With trembling hands, Ethan plugged the USB into his laptop. A single audio file appeared, time-stamped 3 months before Richard's death. Noah hit play. Richard's voice emerged, weak but steady. If you're hearing this, then the danger is real. Ethan's breath caught. I didn't want to burden you, son. I hoped I'd be able to stop it myself. I hoped they'd come to their senses. But greed doesn't heal. It consumes. A pause. Richard exhaled shakily. I know what Lucas is planning. I know what Vanessa promised him. I know who they're working with. I also know they intend to use your grief to break you, the same way they tried to break me. Ethan felt his throat tighten painfully. You must not trust their words, not their tears, not their apologies, Ethan. They lied to you before they even met you. Ethan jerked upright. What? He whispered. Amelia's eyes widened. Richard knew more than he told us. The recording continued. Vanessa approached Lucas before she ever approached you. Lucas introduced her to you because he believed she could manipulate you into giving him access to the business. Ethan felt the floor tilt beneath him. She didn't fall in love with you by accident, Richard said. She targeted you. My son, she targeted you. Ethan shut his eyes, pain slicing clean through him. And Lucas used you both. They planned this long before my illness. The only reason it accelerated is because they feared I would change the will. Noah muttered something under his breath, rage. Contained and lethal. Richard's voice cracked softly. I'm sorry, Ethan. I should have told you sooner. I should have protected you better. But you are stronger than you think. You are more capable than you realize. And when this ends, I want you to stand tall. Not because you won, but because you endured. The audio clicked off. Silence echoed. Deep, heavy, devastating. Ethan didn't cry. He didn't collapse. He didn't break. He simply sat still, breathing through the pain until it settled into something sharper, clearer, like the edges of a blade being honed. So they planned it from the beginning, he whispered. Before the marriage, before everything, Amelia nodded. Ethan, I'm so sorry. Noah pressed a hand to the table, knuckles white. Your father was fighting this battle long before you realized there was one. Ethan inhaled slowly, deeply. His voice steadied. Then I'm finishing it. Amelia exchanged a glance with Noah, equal parts relief and concern. What do you want to do? She asked gently. Ethan stood, rising with a calmness that felt foreign but powerful. We deliver the filings, he said. Tonight, no more delays. And Lucas, Noah asked. We give the DA everything, Ethan said. The withdrawals, the collusion, the medical theft, all of it. And Vanessa, Amelia asked. Ethan paused. Once, the thought of hurting her even legally would have destroyed him. Now, she had destroyed herself. We expose the truth, he said, and let the courts handle the rest. Before they could respond, a sharp crash echoed from outside glass, shattering. Something heavy hitting the ground. Noah's hand went instinctively to his holstered firearm. Stay here, he ordered, but Ethan had already risen, adrenaline flooding him. They rushed to the porch and froze. The side window of Ethan's truck had been smashed, glass scattered across the driveway like glittering frost and taped to the steering wheel. A note. Noah carefully retrieved it with gloved hands. He read it once, twice, then looked at Ethan, eyes darkening. It's from Lucas. Ethan swallowed hard. What does it say? Axe? Noah handed him the note, messy handwriting, shaking, frantic. You took everything from me. Now I'll take everything from you. Ethan's blood ran cold. Behind him, Amelia whispered, This just escalated. Noah's voice hardened to steel. You're not safe here anymore. The sky had grown darker without Ethan noticing. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. Life has a way of testing the strength we never knew we had. Ethan's journey is a reminder that betrayal doesn't define us. How we rise afterward does. Sometimes, the people we trust most become the source of our deepest wounds. But even in the darkest moments, there are truths worth fighting for and bonds worth protecting. Healing isn't born from revenge. It grows from reclaiming our power, choosing integrity, and refusing to let someone else's cruelty turn us bitter. In the end, Ethan didn't just survive. He rediscovered who he was meant to be. And that is a victory no one can steal. If this story touched you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated most with you? Share your feelings in the comments. And if you enjoy emotional, powerful stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more.